What's up, chess fans? International Master Levy Rozman here, bringing you a fascinating Game of the Day recap for Chess.com. Today's game is out of this world, you might say, as it was played between two Russian cosmonauts currently on the International Space Station, Anatoly Ivanishin and Ivan Vagner, and Sergey Karjakin, the World Championship challenger in 2016. Let's jump into it and see what happened. So, the cosmonauts started out with an exchange roux-lopez, and then after castles, Karjakin here plays an interesting move. A move that, if you look in the database, is something like the 8th or 9th most popular, and it kind of doesn't solve black's opening problems. Namely, the fact that there's the pawn hanging on e5, so normally black plays something like bishop g4, at least pinning the knight, or bishop d6, or even f6, which is played, but he plays bishop e6. Alright. The cosmonauts, a little bit too nervous to take the pawn, play b3, trying to put the bishop on b2, and after c5, responded by capturing. Now, I don't actually know the strength of the cosmonauts, but I imagine that they did see that this move was possible, because at first glance this looks just like a clean blunder, but it is not the end of the story. And after the most interesting continuation, knight c4, takes, queen takes a1, this is a case of a queen being trapped on the edge of the board. In rare cases, you can actually trap that queen in there using an interesting configuration of pieces. The queen cannot take the knight, the queen cannot go here, the queen cannot go here, and the queen really can't stay here too long, because for the moment, white cannot play bishop a3, winning the queen, obviously, because the queen would just take the queen. But just in one move, this queen will be in some dire danger. For instance, if the queen comes here, or even here, and then bishop a3, you'll be winning the queen. So, you might say, well, 2 rooks is fine for a queen. You're right, but not this early in the game. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that if you just remove the queen from the board, notice how black has developed nothing? Yeah, that's bad. So, here, Karjakin plays a move that still actually defends nothing, but according to the engine, run on a deep enough level is the best move, and that move is the ridiculous move, b5. I mean, it's crazy that this is the most natural move. Well, first of all, if you continue with something like bishop d6, I'm actually just going to ignore your queen completely, and I'm going to play e5, and again, you have to deal with the fact that your king is stuck in the center of the board. If you take, I have ideas like rook e1 and queen e2, and I'm just going to be picking up material here. Another thing is, if you just castle queenside, let's say instead of bishop d6, you say, I'm just going to get castled. This also doesn't work, because again, I'm playing queen e2, and I will still just be winning your queen. There is a slight preference here for the white side. So he plays b5. Now, how does that stop the queen moving? Well, let's see. Queen h5. Again, if you had played queen e2 with the same idea of moving the bishop, now b4 comes. That's the problem. Is that now, if something like this, I'm sacrificing my queen, but notice I'm going to win more material than before. I'm actually going to win a knight, and if, for example, b5, queen e2, b4, the knight moves, I just wanted to demonstrate this, the queen gets out, right? The queen actually has an escape path, and doesn't get trapped in the corner, not to mention it can just take on a2. So, the cosmonauts respond with queen h5, very aggressively looking for damaging queen moves in the center. Karjakin now plays a move that attacks the queen, but does allow a check. But queen e5 would not be correct. It would not be correct because of the stunning resource king d8. When the queen does not have a single check, and I don't believe that bishop a3 works here because of bishop d6, if my analysis was correct, with, for example, the following continuation, queen g5, it looks like the queen is trapped. Nope. Boom. You deflect the king away, and now the queen just simply captures on f1, with still complete craziness to follow, but the queen is not trapped. Alright? So queen f3, setting up a discovered attack on the rook and the e5 push. Karjakin plays b4, e5. A crazy tactical slugfest is unfolding right before our eyes. The knight is hanging, the rook is hanging, the queen's about to get trapped, the knight on c3 is hanging. So, long castles, bishop a3, sacrificing the queen for the rook, taking on c3, taking on f6, taking on d2, and now in a rather peaceful conclusion, the game ends in a draw. Queen a8 check, king d7, queen d5. The cosmonauts did not have a choice here, because if they did not go for perpetual for, I don't know, some reason, for instance, queen f5 and king b8, Karjakin would have simply promoted to a queen here, and he would have been winning. Now you might say, Levy, you flew through that tactical sequence. Let's break it down move by move after e5. Well, here's the problem, my friends. The game continued with long castles, but Karjakin does not have a choice, all right? He just doesn't have a choice. Because if he saves his rook and allows pawn takes f6, his king's stuck in the center, and rook e1 is coming, not to mention that the queen will be trapped, and if it's not trapped, my knight's getting to d5, my queen's getting to c6. This is very bad. All right, you know, taking back on f6 is devastating. I mean, I think just queen c6 and rook e1 here is winning on the spot. Moves like this also using the queen as kind of like the deflected piece away on a1. You focus too much on trying to save your queen, and then you just lose in devastating fashion. Another move besides long castling, I'm not really sure there is one. I mean, I'm not sure how you defend this, right? So let's say long castles, bishop a3. Again, he had no choice here. He had to lose his queen, and then he had to take this. Now, after pawn takes f6, again, Sergey could have... He played pawn takes d2, but his only other alternative was to take on f6, and... I mean, really, the only instructive moment about this position is the fact that because white's pawn structure stays completely compact, white is just better here, and black's got 4 pawn islands, which are pawns that have no neighbors, and in fact, 2 of the islands are doubled and isolated, which is very ugly and very uncomfortable. And so for that reason, Sergey took on d2 and allowed this repetition, and in true Super Grandmaster style, the players repeated, and a peaceful resolution was reached. Now, there was obviously a lot of moments in the game where, well, tactics were flying left and right, and then there was branches where the players could have played slightly differently, but ultimately from about move 12 until move 21, when the draw was secured, everything was the best optimal move in the position for both sides. So a very well played game between 2 players who have dedicated their lives to traveling beyond our atmosphere, and to Mr. Karjakin, who once challenged for the World Championship crown. If you enjoyed the video, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I've been appreciating reading all of your comments on all of my various Game of the Day videos. I do have my own channel where I sometimes post games and whatnot, and somewhere to the left of me you can check out other videos here on Chess.com. Hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next one.